Okay, so we're testing the power system. Hopefully you can see that. We got a voltage drop, and then we get a recovery with the solar running, and it's an overcast day. All right, so that's what our sky looks like right now. That's overcast. When I'm running the power saw, I get a voltage drop. We're still getting 8.4 amps out of the solar system, and we're feeding our battery at about the 6.9, 6.5 level. The other thing is that's happening simultaneously is I'm running a couple amps charging a battery here. I could turn on some lights, and we're gonna see what happens when we're gonna watch our voltage here. It goes down into the 10s, which puts me in danger of the safety circuit on the inverter kicking off. So what's going on now, and we're doing everything off this RV Marine battery. I've talked about it in other videos. If you use deep cycles, they can't seem to handle this. You gotta have batteries that have cranking amps that can handle, if you can hear that saw in the background, you can handle that voltage draw. Now, as soon as that saw is turned off, but the inverter is still on, it's still running its cooling fan, and they still have this battery charger going, that voltage does come back. And that's because we're still getting our 18, 20-ish out of the panels on the roof. The cutting that's going on here is, we're testing these saws before going out to the off-grid places. But basically it's deck rail pieces for a deck. So here we can see this, and this is a 10 amp circular saw. Okay, now we were making some cuts with the Ryobi cordless here. It was doing fine, but I wanted to test this system. So yeah, go ahead and make your cut. Yeah. So we've got no significant loss of power running off this, but as you can see, not real strong sunlight going on. We're basically recharging at a little bit slower rate than that saw uses things under power. Although what's happened is the system here is starting to tell me that I'm low voltage. It's giving me some error code, so we can't work all day. We can do this with more battery storage or a little bit more delay time in between making cuts. And there's a guy, I think it was Solar Work Shed or something like that, he was a Harbor Freight employee, was demonstrating a system using them really, I think he was using the same inverter, but he was using a really low powered solar array, but he's using it in full sunlight. I've got a 400 watt array that's operating at maybe, you know, 20% capacity right now because of the weather. So we're losing voltage at the system here, which means that it just cut off my battery charger, cut off my 12 volt loads. But the reason the inverter is not cut off is because it's closer to the battery. There's no power loss between, there's very little power loss between the inverter and the unit. But if I was trying to run everything off of this system here, then yeah, there's a real limitation. It's not, again, there's the length of the cord. That's part of what's going on. So it's stressing the system, but we are handling the job. But it is stressing it, although I have a backup plan, which is the battery operated stuff with some of these things ready to go. But we're testing it and checking capacity and what everything can do. Normally, I think before rolling out, I am going to go with a cart-based power box, and we're going to go into another discussion. I'm going to call it Testing the System 1B on the cost effectiveness of systems like this, because remember that Harbor Freight chop saw is not very expensive, and it's when we start adding up the cost of these batteries, these are $100 a battery. These are actually more money than that little RV marine battery that I have down there running the inverter system. So we also have to look at decent quality cordless circular saws like the DeWalt. Yeah, it's kind of buried in there, but I got a DeWalt in there. Those are a couple $100. And so for $200 out of Harbor Freight, you're getting full power. For $200 out of Harbor Freight, you can get the whole stand and this saw. So what we're looking at on other cost issues is the power. Obviously that saw can do a lot more cutting than the little cordless stuff can do. And then of course we're looking at cost issues on the batteries, which are actually relatively comparable. The charger, charge controller, not majorly far off. This one's a full featured one. It gives me it tells me a lot about what's going on in the system. But we're looking at other types of off-grid ones that just have a little blinking light, tells you it's working. That's not as it's not as critical. And don't forget, a lot of these things, of course the new ones will tell you the charge status on a battery or something like that. This one was freaking out on me, I think mainly because it wasn't really dead when I put it on the system. So we'll see what happens here.